Good morning from Ankara. Good afternoon. Good evening to anyone in the world. Welcome to this session, Volunteering Management and Regional Perspectives. First of all, I would like to thank to RC3 platform for providing us that platform to discuss that important issue. And also, I want to thank Louise and all the people behind her for putting these efforts together. We will be today discussing about volunteering management, such an important topic as we have been experiencing a huge disaster in the southeast of Turkey. We have once more again experienced or think about how to organize volunteers, how to manage them, and how to coordinate with them, how to effectively deploy them to the field to conduct humanitarian operations or to alleviate the humanitarian suffering at the ground. They are really a huge power for us and huge support for us. But to govern them, to work together with them, and to move together with them, engage with them, learn with them, and provide humanitarian support with them is quite crucial topic. And there are many regional perspectives, regional experiences, and maybe the local experiences as well around the world. Today we will shed light on different regions and different locations to discuss this issue, and we have 4 distinguished panels here, and they will be providing their research and their intellectual perspective. We have Dr. Adem Baspinar from Kirklareli University and Tiago Costa from Portuguese Red Cross Society, and Zipporah Kerubo from Kenyan Red Cross, and Havva Demir from Turkish Red Crescent Society, and me as a moderator of that session, Salman from Turkish Red Crescent Academy, the Research and Training Department of Turkish Red Crescent Society, will be moderating this session today, and with the support of Pınar and Zehra Hocam, volunteer of Red Crescent Academy and my colleague at Red Crescent Academy, and we will be pleased to have you here today. And if, without further ado, I want to start with Adem Hocam. She's a close researcher and colleague of us here in Turkey, and we have been conducting several research projects together, and volunteering is one of the topics that we have been covered so far, and I want to thank to him due to his busy schedule. He has provided us an important time and early time here in Turkey. Thanks again. Adem Hocam has completed his undergraduate education at Marmara University at the Department of Sociology, and currently he has been working at Kirklareli University as a doctoral faculty member, and his research interests include the military sociology, health sociology, urban sociology, sociology of education, and disaster sociology, and volunteering. And today he will be sharing one of the research findings that he has conducted last year with the Turkish Red Crescent volunteers and youth team. And I'm eager to listen to his presentation. Hocam, welcome again. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Salman. Thank you all. Let me share my presentation. All good?
Yeah.
The research I'm going to present today is we are doing with Kızılay every year repeatedly. This research is based on the effect analysis of volunteerism program conducted by the Child Program Coordinatorship, CPC, of Turkish Red Crescent's Migration Services Directorate. The CPC began to conduct various activities and programs for children between the age of 4 and 18 in their own activity areas accordance with the cooperation protocol signed between Turkish Red Crescent and UNICEF in May 2013. These areas involve child protection, psychological support, educational support activities for protection, prevention, and awareness raising purposes. CPC has actively conducted activities in 33 areas in 16 different cities. And since 2013, approximately 4,400 volunteers have been trained. CPC's volunteer program was structured for the young aged between 14 and 18 with the aim of enabling adolescents to voluntarily, actively, and effectively participate in CPC organized activities after going through various training and application processes. The volunteerism program is comprised of 11 modules and structured into 4 states. For the impact analysis, a field research was conducted with a mixed method. A convergent parallel mixed method design was used. 2 different data collection process, qualitative and qualitative, were conducted. The data were analyzed and then interpreted. In this context, evaluations were received using semi-structured meetings and focus group interviews with the volunteerism from the participants, down the volunteers of volunteerism program, their families, and youth workers. In addition, a pre-test and post-test were applied to volunteer candidates who participated to the training during 2020 and 2021 session. A total of 15 volunteers were interviewed during the qualitative research, and focus group interviews conducted with 22 volunteers, 13 parents, and 11 youth workers. During the quantitative research, the pre-test and post-test were applied to approximately 140 people receiving volunteerism training in 14 different centers. In this regard, the opinions of those completing the program were taken before and after the program regarding volunteering skills. And the program were evaluated by detecting the program's effect comparatively and by obtaining in-depth data regarding the structure and operation of the program, as well as the beneficiaries and workers' perception and their experiences. Here are the questionnaire we use in the research, and here is the questionnaire form. And what we found, I'm gonna keep it short. A paired group test was conducted to determine whether there was a significant difference between the mean score of experimental group on the questionnaire items before and after the training. As a result of the analysis, the difference was realized at the for some specific items, and for some other items, the difference between pre-test and post-test averages were not so significant. On the other hand, while the score obtained from some items for which there were significant difference between pre-test and post-test averages, decreased significantly in the post-test compared to the pre-test. The participants of the research can be suggested to have made progress regarding respecting the ideas of younger children, giving present to the children, preparing a schedule and planning the day, multi-purpose usage of materials used in the programs, and understanding the difficulties of being a team, blah, blah. They can be said to have understood the importance of calmly expressing emotions and thoughts during the conflict, of presenting reasonable suggestions, and of being part of a team. Then they began to care about each team member's motivation, to listen to the directives of the leader, and to try to get to know a person before expressing opinions about them. They can also be said to have learned not to hesitate to defend their ideas, to understand the importance of empathy, to begin considering developing leadership features and respect differences, how to lead a team. The research includes, as I said, quantitative data regarding the effectiveness of the program, as well as the qualitative data and suggestions that were made based on these. The research, after the research, we prepared a general report. I'm not sure if available to everyone or not, but maybe someone in Turkish Red Crescent can give us some ideas about, is it possible to share the full report with you or not? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adem Hocam. Regarding the sharing of the full report, I need to check with the colleagues at the team. But there's one more question about the sharing the presentation. Is it okay for you? Can we share it with the participants? Okay. If it is in Spanish, it's much appreciated, the question asked, but it will be in English, sure. So thank you. It's, I think, quite a unique study, even for the Turkish case and for the global case, the attitudes and impacts of that program on volunteers and young volunteers. I think if that's analysis program continues each year, it will provide us a bigger picture to see the real impact of the program. And thanks again for your research and sharing the results with us. So in the end, I think we can make a lively discussion. So I want to move to the next presentation. If you have any specific and unique questions to the Adem Hoca, please ask it. We can ask it at the chat box, and then we can give the floor to you, dear participants. So we have now, without further ado, I want to go on with dear Zipporah from Kenya Red Cross Society. Zipporah is in charge of volunteer membership management within the Kenya Red Cross Society, and she has been working for the society more than 12 years. And she has a long experience about membership and recruitment and retention process, supporting in around 50 countries. She is alma mater of United States International University and a champion of women leadership and governance. Zipporah, welcome again. Thanks for your time and being the part of that panel. The floor is yours. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Selman, for this opportunity. I'm really honored. For me, I don't have a presentation per se, but I'll just take all of us through how do we manage our volunteers from onboarding, the recruitment, all the way to retaining them, and what has been the highlights and the challenges when you're trying to do this, either in emergencies, in the capacity building, and so forth. So I'll start with onboarding. So the Kenya Red Cross has more than 260,000 volunteers and members spread out across the 47 counties that we work within, the 8 regions. So you find that we auxiliary to the government, and so any other national societies, we try and just complement the efforts of the government, but most of the work that we do are done by our volunteers. So we have several programs that we conduct, and before we do these programs, we ensure that the volunteers understand that they are the backbone of the organization. They are the leaders, they're the champions to help us accelerate our humanitarian activities. So the first thing that we do is we recruit our volunteers based on the 5th fundamental principle. We do not discriminate, but also at the same time, we ensure that our volunteers understand the code of conduct. They are not in trouble with the authorities. They have a clean record from their communities, so that when we recruit them, at least they're bringing in positive impact into the organization. So during recruitment, there are key factors that we make sure that we have: their profession, their age, what they like to do, their blood group, for example, what they would really like to assist, implement, their strengths, driving license. It's something that we've started these days. So many information that we gather about our volunteers to help us analyze and divide them into different categories of our programming. So that's number one. The second thing, we do the orientation. But basically, the dissemination or the orientation is not only about our father, Henry Dunant, but ensuring that they understand the role between governance and management, for example. They understand the dynamics and the context between the different counties. Like, for example, in Kenya right now, we are suffering from droughts. So in Turkana, volunteers in Turkana County, they'll do very different activities from volunteers in Nairobi County. So we make sure we have our dissemination according to different contexts, so that whenever they implement, they understand the context of these communities. And then number 3, now we delve into capacity strengthening our volunteers. Of course, when you say training, it can be really expensive for us to train the whole 260,000 volunteers, for sure, but how do we ensure we capacity strengthen their skills? If someone was a nurse, can we do orientation or different trainings in the branches of first aid, for example, psychosocial support? Whenever there is, like right now, Kenya, we also have the cholera outbreak. So before the nurses or the volunteers who have done something to do with the medical field, before they go and respond, what are the do's and the don'ts? The Ebola response, the IFRC really supported us in training some of our volunteers. So before they do anything, they have to be capacity strengthened. And then number 4, now we start engaging them. Remember, when we recruited them, we grouped them into different professions and activities. Now we roll them out for them to start implementing the activities. So in 2019, let me take us back. So in 2019, the research that we did was, we realized that we have so many volunteers. The retention is very high, We have people not really wanting to leave the organization, but how do we strengthen that component so that in case of anything, we don't have a lot of complaints, we have so many people bringing people on board, and also we make sure that there's growth, there's volunteerism growth, because as much as we say there's no gain for them, but there must be gain for their skills, there must be gain for their competencies. So we went to the counties again, the 47 counties that I've mentioned, and we had participatory trainings with our volunteers. What is working well? What is not working well? Very open forum, whereby they'll tell us, we don't like this, we like this, please review the policy. We want this to be done differently. We like to be treated like this. We want to be told thank you after meetings. We want to have debriefs after their activities, even if it's not an activity that was situated in an emergency forum. So that's what we did. Then we came back and now we did the books. We did 3 books for the Red Cross. I'll share the link for the books. We did a volunteer handbook. So this is a small pocket guide that they put in their pockets for their insurance. How are you insured as a volunteer? In case you are attacked, safer access, what are the steps for you to do under security? In case there's an emergency and you need to respond, who do you need to respond to first? Because our volunteers really have the humanitarian blood. Whenever they see an accident, they will want to go and respond. But what are the do's and the don'ts for you to respond so that we ensure there's also duty of care and protection and safety comes first? So with these books, it really helped. The second book that we did was a volunteer manager handbook. So this is a book that, like, Selman is the coordinator for volunteers. He deals with so many volunteers, but how do you work with them? Volunteerism is very different from HR, because HR, if you don't do this, you're fired. But for volunteers, how do you ensure that you admit everyone, you accommodate everyone, they understand you, you understand them? So there's a handbook for our volunteer coordinators or any manager to understand how they need to work with our volunteer. The third book that we did was the volunteer engagement strategy. So how do we have a strategy that is aligned with the national strategy, the 2021-2025 strategy? So this will tell us and will tell all the managers in their programs and head of departments, whenever you're doing your programs, this is how you need to involve volunteers in this. So this is how we created all these handbooks, and we cannot move if people do not understand what is needed in the handbooks. That's what we did. So for us, it's really important after volunteer engagement, because now they know their rights, we know how we are supposed to work with them. Then we move to the retention strategy. How do we make sure that we retain them, we recognize them? In the branch organization capacity analysis also that we did in 2021, realized some of the attributes involve volunteer management recognition. So how do we ensure we give them certificates after their training? There's growth for them, even career growth, because you see, new volunteers are coming, and like Adem said, we're trying to nurture children to become volunteers. So what about the old ones? They need to grow to give space to the younger generation. So how do we ensure we do then that? And then we also realize that we need to strengthen our volunteer awards. I know the Turkish Red Crescent also does this, but how do we then award them honor from the county basis? They're awarded, they're recognized, very big events, and then it comes to the regional level. And then every year in December, we make sure before the International Volunteer Day, now we do our National Volunteer Award. Very big event, like the Oscars, if I may say. They come, they dress up, they know, there's competition, very stiff competition for them to apply, to be selected by an independent body, then they win. So that really makes our volunteers be motivated and want to really support the organization, because you say our volunteers are priceless. We cannot pay them for the good job that they do, but we need to ensure that they're well known, they're recognized, and there's that growth. So for me, that's what we did. And lastly, very quickly, we developed a volunteer membership management system. So all those things that I've talked about, they're in a system. So if someone wants to say, Zipporah, I need 50 people, volunteers who are doctors or nurses, we quickly go to the database, we quickly select, we see their expertise, are they surgeons, are they, different types of doctors, we filter that and we send the information. So it has really helped us to really manage our volunteers and our members. So thank you very much. I'll be sharing the link again so that we see the handbooks, and thank you very much, Salman, for the opportunity. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, dear Zipporah, for providing that Kenyan context of the volunteer management. I feel it's quite exciting, and there was also a question about access to these handbooks and these sources. I think they will be available. We can share them with the participants as well. Also, by your definition about the volunteers are the humanitarian bullets, I think it's quite enlightening definition. They are really the power within the system. And I also wish the best of success that the volunteer awards of that Kenya context. And now, without further ado, I want to continue with Havva. She's my dear colleague. And the point that Zipporah has stopped a volunteer management system. I think there's one good case here in Turkey, and it's a digital system, and it provides us a quite, okay, I'll stop. Maybe the Havva will continue. I don't want to make a pilot presentation here. But I want to give the floor to Havva. She's my dear colleague at the Volunteer Management Directorate and a master's student at the disaster studies, and now she's at the very center of the disaster area, and she has been living the disaster context with the volunteers. I think it's a good timing for us to hear her views about is the system is working there, or how does you implement your volunteer management practice at the Grant as a Turkish Education Society. Havva, welcome again. Thanks for your sacrifice, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Salman, for giving me this opportunity. Yes, it's a bit hard for me to connect in the middle of disaster area, but I also find this very important to share this experiences about volunteer management with the Brad family, because it has been a while that we've been focusing on volunteer management system in our directorate, and we are also aware of that all of these experiences are important for us. So just let me share my screen here. Okay. Well, so can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So today I would like to talk about firstly the current situation of TRC's volunteering system. I mean, we have several kind of departments here in Turkish at Crescent, but volunteer management is one of them, and it's a bit new for our Red Crescent as well. So I can say we have established a volunteer management department in 2019, and after we established a new volunteer management department in Red Crescent, we has conducted a volunteer management system after 1 year that the established of department. So during that time, we also empowered the different types of volunteering among women and youth and some disabled persons, and while empowering these types of volunteering, we were also aware of that this kind of empowerment requires volunteering tools. We also improve volunteering tools and volunteer centers for our volunteers during that time. And unfortunately, approximately like 4 years in Turkey, we've been facing with a lot of disasters and emergency situations, including the loss of that occurred in Turkey, the south of Turkey. So we also knew that disaster and emergency volunteering wasn't necessary for our volunteers. During that time, we also empowered our international partnerships, and we conducted many programs with our colleagues and colleagues from Red Crescent and Red Crosses as well. So, but before focusing on volunteer management system, I would like to frame the areas of volunteering in Turkish Red Crescent. Maybe many of you have heard of the blood donation system of Turkish Red Crescent, but our volunteers are also integrated with blood donation of Turkish Red Crescent, and they're helping with promotion of donations as well. So disasters and emergencies is also one of them. Migration processes is another topic for us, and also we also talk about the child programs in Turkish Red Crescent today as well. So migration processes has been going on since the Syrian war, I suppose. So it's another topic that we are receiving help of our volunteers. Capacity building in branches is also another important topic for us, because, for example, these kind of wide range disasters also require some local volunteers and volunteer management system. For that, we are also eager to capacity building in our branches to get some localization in our volunteer management system as well. So these are the basic areas that has Turkish Red Crescent, and once I see that scene, actually, one question always comes to my mind: that how you can manage all of these volunteering areas with one directorate, with one department. So it was a bit hard before this volunteer management system, but before 3 years ago, we have conducted our online volunteer management system, gönüllüol.org, which means bevolunteer.org. Maybe you can ask that why you didn't pick any kind of, Red Crescent or any relative Red Crescent word in this website. Well, we were also thinking that being volunteer is not just for our Red family. We wanted to promote volunteering among country, and once we success that promotion, we would like to also promote this volunteering internationally. So this is why we wanted to pick a name in general. So so basically, it's bevolunteer.org for everyone. Not just be a volunteer of Turkish Red Crescent, not just being a volunteer of another NGO, it's just be a volunteer. So this is an online system that we can use for receiving the information of our volunteers, and it also has many qualifications, including the personal data and evaluation processes, and many of these. So I will be also explaining later. So you can see the main screen here. It's the main screen of the system, and after that you can see there's the main page. Maybe you can find some similarities with the some social media platforms. And this is a page actually that volunteers find chance to share volunteer stories with their connections, with the other volunteers as well, and leave a comment or like for each other's post, which means we didn't want to put some system that is like that looks like an Excel and another Microsoft software. We wanted to put something interesting for our volunteers, because we know that if we cannot stretch them with the system, we know we will be losing them in the future. So once the volunteer attached with the system, we wanted to keep them in the system actually. So this is why we wanted to design a system with the similarity of social media accounts, which we're also aware of that our volunteers are spending their time a lot. So this was the main page, and this is a profile page for each volunteer actually. So it's a basic tool that a volunteer can see their main informations and the duties that he or she has attended already, and he or she can also leave a biography over there as well. I'm sorry, and they can also find suitable trainings for them if they want to apply for a specific volunteer duty, which also requires a training before duty. They can also apply from this page as well. So I think this is the most important page for me, and it's a personal view, but maybe you can also understand why I'm saying this. This is the evaluation part. This is the evaluation page. Once the volunteer attended the duty and he or she complete the duty, they receive this page. So it's a chance for them to evaluate each other. It's a both sides actually evaluation. So a focal point from Turkish Red Crescent or another volunteer group, it's a focal point part, and there is a volunteer part. So they can evaluate each other via this page, and the results appear on volunteering points of the users. And as a volunteer management department, we received all reports, and if there is any necessary, if there is any action that we can take, we take via this reports actually. So this is why I think it's a very important page for us too, and it's a very it's a very useful tool to keep our volunteers motivated, because they know we are waiting for hear from their feedbacks. We're not just just saying them or welcoming them to the duty, and after duty we're just saying okay, thank you and goodbye. We want to hear how was the duty, if there is anything that we can improve, if there's anything that we can do for the process, for the future processes. So it's a very important page. So and after all of these, the system is also notifies the users by sending special celebration, which is also another motivation tool for us. The system is basically saying that I remember you. As a Turkish Red Crescent system, I remember you. I know when you registered to the system. I know when you did become a volunteer, and by using these kind of notifications, we can also connect our volunteers, and we can keep them motivated as well, while remembering them and sending them this kind of notification. And always there are some duties, especially for disaster duties and other specific duties, and some of them might require some special trainings. So we also provide these trainings via this system online. There is a collaboration between us and Turkish Red Crescent Academy by this point. Maybe someone can inform us after this presentation about a little, but there is a collaboration between Academy and Volunteer Management Department, so we can provide these kind of educations via also system. So and once we online this all of educations, we also see that it was a good way to contribute of our volunteers and increasing the numbers of participants as well for its trainings and for its duties as well. So yeah, these are the education programs, some of them. our education programs for volunteers. We have LMS coordinations, which LMS courses with the contribution of Turkish Press and Academy. We have on-the-job trainings as well, and we have other kind of trainings. And these are, some examples of our trainings, which we can provide to our volunteers. And I forgot to mention about the reports. Zipporah, I think you said about something about, the feedbacks and the certificates for volunteers. So after completing the duty, the system can design a specific certificate for volunteer. It also includes the information about the date of duty and the name of a volunteer. And if there is any specific information, you can also find it over there. It's in the certificate. So it was a manual job for us before the volunteer management system. It was really hard for us, I should admit. So after conducting this system, we also made it online. Thank God. So, and for emergency situations, we have another specified page actually, and it's also important for us because once the emergency occurred, including earthquake and other emergencies, we also wanted to keep the system alive, and we wanted to use the system as much as possible actually. But we know that especially for the first 3 days, no one can use a system in it with the details and with the long hours, but we also wanted to keep the system in the game actually. So once the emergency occurred in somewhere, we received this page, and we can create a volunteer duty as the emergency duty, including just a very few of questions, and where are we waiting for our volunteers, and who are they will be contacting, and if they can attend or not. These are the basic questions that we are asking via this page, and we are also using a geographical information system for this page actually. If there is a city and an earthquake occurred in that city, and if we cannot receive enough number of volunteers in that city, we're also using this GIC system and asking for more volunteers around the city. So it's another important tool for us to use for tracking volunteers during emergency times. Oops. And this is a page of the application. Yes, I'm a desktop user actually for this kind of applications, but many of our volunteers are preferring to use applications. So we also connected an application for volunteers, and it's also online at iTunes and Google Play Store. So more as a result of our surveys, we received that many of our volunteers preferring to use applications. So it was also necessary for us to connect. And this is a final report system actually. It's a Power BI page, a bit complicated, but also useful for us because we can see the number of volunteers, the total number of Turkish Crescent volunteers, the number of the number of active volunteers, and the average ages for volunteers, and top 5 volunteering areas, and also we can see the local volunteers in each cities in Turkey. So it's another way to make our job easier for us for these reports and other things. And before I thank all of you for listening me, I'm sorry it took a bit long. We also conducted a satisfaction survey for our volunteers as well. If they are okay, if they are pleasant with the system or not. And we have received some important results actually. So I wanted to mention them a bit and I will be finished in 2 minutes. I can see that, finish it looks from Selman. So just give me 1 more minute and I will be summing up, okay? So after this survey participation, after this survey, actually, we also received that this system facilitated access to volunteer human resources. So we also know volunteers are also basically human resources for each Red Crescent and Red Cross. So we facilitated our human resources at the end of the day with the system. And it also enabled the volunteers to see and evaluate the results of their services. So volunteers can see their contribution to the Red Cross and Red Crescent via the system. So it's another important result for us too. And contributes to making volunteers feel valued. Motivation of volunteers is basically, showing them their contribution at the end of the day after volunteering duty. So this system also gave us the opportunity to show our volunteers their contributions. So thank you so much. I'm sorry about my voice. It's a bit hard, situation here in disaster area.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, thank you, Havva. Thanks for your time and providing that valuable information for us. And without further ado, I directly want to continue with the dear Tiago, last but not the least, panelist of our panel today. And he has graduated from the psychology department, and he has a master's degree on psychology of justice and community. And he has been working as a volunteer since 2008. And then since 2014, maybe he's staff at Portuguese Red Cross Society, and he's a youth coordinator, and he has been nominated as a youth coordinator programs many times. Tiago, the floor is yours, and welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Selma, and good morning and hello to everyone. I will share my presentation. So the presentation that I will be doing here is not exactly about volunteering management in Portuguese Red Cross, but mostly about the research that we did last year about Portuguese Red Cross volunteers' motivation and satisfaction. Yeah, just a quick introduction. So in Portuguese Red Cross, we have around 4,000 volunteers, and basically they collaborate in different areas of volunteering according to the areas of intervention of our national society. So we have these 3 different areas of volunteering. From one side, emergency and first aid. From the other side, the youth area, so youth projects that are developed with young volunteers, and also the general volunteering area that basically is the one where our volunteers collaborate mostly in social projects. So during the recent years, the last years, we have been facing some difficulties in terms of retention of volunteers. So basically, we don't have difficulties on recruitment of volunteers and on having more people interested to join Portuguese Red Cross, but we have been facing some difficulties to retain the ones that are already with us. So we start thinking about it. We start seeing it as a problem that we are facing right now, and we wanted to do a research about it. So we wanted to understand why a lot of our volunteers are moving away. And on this occasion, we decided to do a partnership with this entity, 180 Degrees Consulting, that is based in a Portuguese university, but they are spread all over the world, and they do these consulting projects for nonprofit organizations and social enterprises. I will try to stay with the 15 minutes that I have, but I think that my presentation is quite big because this was a big research as well. Anyway, so yeah, we started with this project scope, so defining what we wanted to do. So basically this entity, 180 Degrees Consulting, they have analyzed all of our volunteer management cycle. They have analyzed all of our documents, so everything basically that was related to volunteering in the Portuguese Red Cross, and also they developed a survey for volunteers, for ex-volunteers, so people that were not volunteering with us anymore, and also they implemented some interviews with volunteers, ex-volunteers, and volunteering coordinators. They started to formulate like hypotheses or some hypotheses why we are facing this low rotation rate in volunteering, and they come up with these 6 main hypotheses. So from one side, that the volunteers didn't know that they could change from local branches, for example, when moving to another city for work or to study. Also that the volunteers aren't very aware that they could change the volunteering area. Also that this difference between the local branches in rural areas and the local branches in more urban areas, and the differences between the retention of volunteers in those. Another hypothesis was the lack of time and availability, lack of competencies, and also the non-match between reality and expectation, so that for some reason we were not corresponding to the volunteers' expectations. Yeah, they also did this key performance indicators identification. So they analyzed studies and academic studies about volunteering, and they managed to identify some key performance indicators that basically was the process to develop the research that we wanted to do here with our volunteers. So instead of first doing the survey and then the interviews, they started by doing the interviews with some of our volunteers and volunteering coordinators in order to get to know more about the Portuguese Red Cross reality in terms of volunteering. Yeah, so regarding, just very quickly, regarding the interviews, they did it with 5 coordinators, 2 volunteers and 1 ex-volunteer. And it comes up during the interviews that the main reasons for volunteers to leave was the lack of motivation and commitment, lack of time, and lack of information. These taking in considerations the answers and the interviews that they did with some of our volunteers and volunteering coordinators. About the surveys, so they with us we had developed this survey for our current volunteers. We had 315 replies, so we have a very well diversified age group, also in terms of sex or gender. Most of the volunteers that answered the survey were from emergency area. Actually, most of our volunteers, or around half of our volunteers, are from this area. Around 40% of the volunteers that answered started to volunteer in Portuguese Red Cross more than 5 years ago, and other data, more demographic data that we collected in this study. About the results, or the main results of this research. So one thing that was really critical somehow was this result that came up, that 23% of our volunteers said in this survey that they were unsatisfied with their coordinator. So in the Portuguese Red Cross, we have several local branches. In each branch, we have a local volunteering coordinator that can be a volunteer or staff, so it depends a lot on the reality of the local branch, and most of the times if the person is a staff, the person accumulates other functions in the local branch. So it can be, for example, the emergency coordinator as well, and at the same time volunteering coordinator. So yeah, we don't have very well identified these local volunteering coordinators as we should. So in this research, it comes out this strong correlation between coordinator satisfaction and the willingness to stay from our volunteers. Anyway, just to share with you some of the most important data. So in general, the levels of satisfaction of our volunteers were good, as around 93% were satisfied with their volunteering experience in the Portuguese Red Cross. But anyway, around 7% replied that they weren't satisfied with their volunteering experience, and 7% is still something, right? But another interesting thing that comes out was that even if just 7% weren't satisfied with their volunteering experience in the Portuguese Red Cross, 44% already thought about leaving the organization, and this is something that really put us thinking about the reasons for this to happen. So yeah, in this research and in collaboration with this association, we wanted to go more into it in order to try to understand why, even if they are satisfied, they at some moment during their volunteering experience they wanted to leave the organization, and we find out some significant correlations, for example, between the feeling that the volunteers have about having or not a supporting coordinator and their satisfaction in the organization. So if you can see here in the presentation, for example, for the volunteers that didn't think about leaving the organization, 85% of them agrees that they have a supporting coordinator. But when we see about the ones that already thought about leaving the organization, just 47% agrees that they have a supporting coordinator. Just to let you know that those specific data are just for the ones that have that are very satisfied with their volunteering experience in the organization. Also, we found out that that also the immaterial rewards is very important in the perspective of our volunteers, and also if they have or not enough opportunities to learn and to develop in the organization. Yeah, I think I prepared the presentation for 1 hour. So I will try to keep it short as much as possible. In this survey, we also had some open questions in order to get some suggestions and some feedback from our volunteers. So they could, for example, provide some suggestions for us. One thing that come up in several surveys was, as a measure suggested, was that we should engage on positive feedback, recognition, motivation, active listening, empathy. And again, this is very connected as well with the volunteering coordination position, because usually it is supposed to be someone that take cares about this when managing volunteers. Also, another suggestions was to promote more social interactions, to do more trainings, to improve working conditions, more funds for local branches, more resources. They also identified some areas that volunteers want improved. For example, transparency, value, support and respect, recognition and active listening, team group mentality, and more and better training offering. In this study, and this was also interesting, the organization that did it with us, they managed to identify like personas for each area of volunteering. I will not go much into it because I don't have too much time for that. But let's just take a look on the ex-volunteer survey that we also did. So from one side, wanted to analyze our volunteer satisfaction and motivation, but we also wanted to know why people that were volunteering with us before, why they decided to leave. So the main reasons for volunteers to leave the main reason were to not be satisfied with the organization, but this is not like the organization, the Red Cross itself, but how things were organized and structured in our national society. Also, as a main reason, change of residency, the perception that their skills were not used and valued. Lack of time, not satisfied with the team, and lack of interest. So also we wanted to have some ideas from our ex-volunteers and some suggestions. For example, they said that it will be important for us to give more credit to volunteers, to listen to their ideas, to promote team activities, to enhance sharing between the members, and also to review the Portuguese Red Cross structure for a better task repartition and organization in the missions. Yeah, we also add this persona of the ex-volunteer, and I will not have time to go very much into it, but according to this research that we did, and in collaboration with this association 180 Degrees Consulting, we managed to do a kind of issue tree. So taking in consideration the main problem, the low retention rate, we identified the two main reasons for that to happen. And from one side was not attracting the right profile, because we were recruiting people with incorrect skills, in the sense that we were not being very focused on the skills that we wanted for some specific functions, for example. And also another thing was the wrong expectations, in the sense that we were not corresponding properly to the expectations of people that wanted to volunteer with us, or we were not being clear about the expectations that we had about the volunteers, for example. And also some structural issues, like, for example, lack of recognition, lack of communication, for example, in terms of the coordination, as I said before. So as most of the people that are the local volunteer coordinators, they are volunteers themselves, or if they are staff, they accumulate with other functions. So sometimes it's tough to do this. Also, they identified as a structural issue for this problem to happen, the lack of training and opportunities, and lack of team mentality. I know that I already passed 2 minutes from my time, so I will not go into it. But anyway, I can give you my email if you want to share some ideas about it. But for each one of these this issue tree or these issues, we identified some measures that we should implement in order to try to tackle the problem. So one thing, I think that the most important thing about this study that we did was that sometimes we have these perceptions about the problems that we are facing in volunteering. But another thing is when you have proper data that shows you the things that you can improve, and also if you want to improve volunteering and volunteering management, the first thing to do is to ask your volunteers about what they think about it, what they can suggest about it. And this research was really important for us, even internally, because we were not having too much funding to develop volunteering. And with this at least for this year, it was quite a bit different, and also it showed us the importance to really tackle some topics and to really work on some topics, because there's a lot to do in terms of volunteering development in our national society, and to improve our volunteers' satisfaction and motivation. And sorry to use some more time that I was supposed to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Tiago. I think it's a kind of the excellent study to learn satisfaction level of the volunteers, and to have the feedbacks, and to also analyze the structural problems behind the low retention issue. It's quite enlightening for me, and thanks again. I think you can share the research with us, with the PPT with us, and we can continue discussion about that. So we have just a few minutes left. I think in that session we have draw a bigger picture of that volunteer management with two cases from the Turkish Red Crescent and Kenyan Red Cross Society, how to recruit, deploy volunteers, and how to manage the system. And the study conducted by Adem Hoca provides us the impact of that volunteer management program. How does it work? And the excellent study conducted by Portuguese Red Cross also shows us the structural problems or the other issues about the low retention rate. I think as we focus on the volunteers, we should also focus on the non-volunteers, or their volunteers, maybe how to use the correct word. That's why these four presentations were quite complementary to each other, and I think it provides us a bigger picture of volunteer management. We have 2 minutes left. If there is anyone who has a burning question, we can give floor to him. Otherwise, we can end the session to not to prevent the program. If there is anyone who wants to have the floor, we can open the microphone or the camera. I think there's no burning question. There were some questions and I have answered them on the chat box. And there's one feedback survey. Dear participants, please click the link and fill the survey to have your feedbacks. It's also crucial for the organization team. I think we can end the session now. Again, I really want to thanks for your time and for your commitment, dear Adem Hocam, dear Zipporah and Tiago. Havva has to leave as she's at the disaster field. She has some work to do, some breakfast distribution program, let's say. Again, I really want to thank all of you. Maybe, okay, we can have a screenshot as a memory of today. Yes, I'm having here. If the other participants are available to their webcams, we can have a memory picture of today. Otherwise, we have just 4 of us. Okay, I think I had it. Thanks again. The program is going on today. We have the other sessions at that long night on research. Again, I want to thank Luis for putting all this together. Good morning from Turkey, good afternoon, and good evening to any other parts of the world. Salam, and have a good day. And let's make the volunteer more supportive of our activities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you and goodbye.